Welcome to Ancient Geeks, a podcast about two geeks of a certain age looking at the origin story of geek culture through the lens of our own lives, revisiting the things that made us fall in love with science fiction, fantasy, and everything else that's geeky. We were geeks before it was chic. We're on an express elevator to hell going down. I'm Tom Grant, your co-host.
And yet again, you've stolen my quip. That's
God
all
damn
right.
it. We
I
should
had a
clear
hard
these in
time.
advance.
I don't know. Again, there's something fun about the reveal, but I had a hard time coming up with something to say on this one.
Well, since I've been away, I could have said, did IQs just drop sharply while I was away in Japan?
That's right.
We'll get into the quotable quotes here of this movie more, but this week we're talking about the movie Aliens, the sequel from 1986 to 1979's Alien. But before we get plunge into that particular topic, let's talk about what we've been doing geeky this week. So, what's on your list?
So the only geeky thing I will note is that I did, because of watching Alien and then Aliens, I did watch the first episode of Alien Earth, which actually was pretty interesting. I know that the reviews of the season finale were not great, but I thought I would give it a whirl. And so that's probably the best example I got right now. How about you?
Well, I've been watching Blue-Eyed Samurai, the Netflix animated series, which has been great. I've been really enjoying it. I'm not binging it. It's a show I don't really want to watch back-to-back episodes.
Hmm.
So I'll watch one and I'll let a couple of days lapse and I'll come back and watch another one. It's a great sort of Chambara sort of story done with absolutely gorgeous animation. It's incredible to look at. So anyway, I would definitely recommend it to people who like those particular kinds of stories. And then I watched the first episode of Publius at your
Oh,
recommendation,
yes, very good.
and I can't talk about it either.
No,
At
you can't
least
talk about it. You can't
you
talk
can't
about it.
say anything about it.
No,
It's kind of extraordinary.
yes, yes. I guess again, I would just add that in the context of our ongoing conversation about, on the one hand, things that are familiar and that draw on nostalgia, or that just are large developed properties, and then the occasional thing that is unique. This, at least to this point, feels like
Yes.
this unique basket. I mean, again, I can come with a couple of comparisons, but they're not precise, and even that they wouldn't do it justice anyway. But
And it would
yes,
really spoil it if you
yeah,
said
oh,
anything,
absolutely, absolutely.
anything whatsoever.
No, I think it's sort of fascinating that, unlike almost any other show that I can think of, that either runs off of star power or IP or some very direct marketing thing. The marketing thing here is, hey, Vince Gilligan knows what he's doing. Watch this show, and that's really all that has
All you
been.
need. That's all
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need.
yeah.
Yeah. It has me in its grip.
Hmm.
Looking forward to watching the second episode.
Excellent.
All right. We don't have a budget for soundtracks
No, we do
for
not.
licensing, but
We got a budget for nothing.
we can muse. We can
Sure.
ponder what we would like to be able to afford. And what would you pick for this episode?
So the music that I would pick for this episode is, I would pick Jerry Goldsmith's Alien soundtrack, because unfortunately, as much as I love James Horner, this soundtrack has some problems that we'll talk about later, I expect.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that'll be spicy because I really like this soundtrack.
Oh, if you like Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3, you'll love this soundtrack, 'cause it's pretty much the same soundtrack.
It does have, I think, probably one of the most archetypical action movie soundtrack segments. You know, when they're escaping from
Hmm.
the terraforming factory. I think I've heard that piece of music in commercials for other movies and other things
Wouldn't
frequently.
surprise me.
Yeah, or certainly it's imitated very closely. All right, well, let's get into the movie aside from the soundtrack. So this is one of those episodes where we're revisiting one of our pasts with a particular
Correct.
piece of geeky content, but the other person is encountering for the first time.
Correct.
And we did that with Alien. We did that
Hmm.
with Blake Seven. This was your first watch.
Correct.
Uh, how about a one-word reaction before we get into specifics?
80s action.
Okay.
I'll hyphenate.
It's very 80s
It's very 80s.
in a lot of ways. Okay. In a good way, I'm
Yeah, in a good
assuming.
way.
In a
On
good way.
balance. On balance, yes.
How I encountered this movie. So, as listeners will know, I was a big fan of the original Alien, and the Terminator had come out not long before this movie. And so when it was announced that James Cameron was going to be doing a sequel to Alien, we certainly felt like it was in good hands. We saw it in the theater. This is, I think, where modern audiences, I think, lose something from not seeing a movie in the theater because practically the whole point of this movie is to grab you and not let you go for the 2 hours and 17 minutes, I think, of its duration. I did go back for a rewatch. I was duly impressed by it and enjoyed it and did see it again. So that was kind of my experience with this movie, but I've watched it multiple times since
Right.
then.
Did you watch it on the iPad or did you watch it on a larger screen?
I watched it on a larger screen.
Okay.
I deliberately did not want to watch it on the iPad.
Yeah, I watched it again. I have a room upstairs that's dark and has surround sound and a large screen. And I watched it. I mean, it's pretty close to going to the movies in my opinion. Not quite the same, but so yeah, I got that experience from it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't usually have more than that for nowadays for the movies that we watched. We just don't go to the movies anymore.
No, very rarely.
Yeah. So, which of these two movies did you like better, Alien or
Oh, I
Aliens?
like the first one better.
Okay. What was
I
it you
mean,
like better?
I think the first one, okay, so again, I put them in kind of two buckets, which is not hardly original, right? I mean, clearly Alien is more science fiction, horror, suspense, and this one is more science fiction action.
Yes.
Um, and I certainly, knowing and having seen a lot of James Cameron movies and some Ridley Scott movies, I see the auteur behind both films and how they shape the films. So I think they're both distinct movies. I think as a sequel, Eagle Aliens is quite good. It's one of, I don't sit down and think about ranking sequels, but it would be high up there as a movie that has its own sort of unique um, presentation and feel, and not just a repeat. Although I would say that there are several story beats that do get repeated in this film from the first film. I just found Alien in comparison is more unique to me. It is more. I was more suspenseful in Alien than I was in this one,
Hmm.
and I felt I don't know. It felt a little. I guess it's because there's more of a mystery in Alien than there is in Aliens.
Right.
Um, and so I think, I mean, they're both good films, but I would definitely place Alien ahead of Aliens. What's your ranking of the two?
It's hard for me
Okay.
because they really are different sorts of movies. And I think that's the genius of this as a sequel is
Hmm.
it's not Alien 2,
Right.
just kind of rehashing the same
Yeah.
sort of science fiction horror story with a lot of body horror elements in
Right.
it. And I think that was exactly right. And I think it's not only one of the best sequels ever made, it's also one of the best sequel titles ever done because the title just being Aliens, of course, was intriguing. That it wasn't Alien 2. It implied something just by the virtue of the title being a plural noun this time around. And as we've said, it was an action movie, with a
Right.
lot of the story beats and elements of the original movie, but it was a different kind of film experience.
I
Um,
mean, it's definitely a different kind of film experience, and maybe it's because I watched them so closely together for the first time. I did notice things like, the while the core mystery is different. Obviously, in the first movie, you don't know what's on the ship. You don't know what's going to happen next, and
right.
especially I can only imagine, right? Because I know enough. I knew enough, as we talked about on the Alien podcast. I knew enough about the basic storyline, what was going to happen. I knew about the face hugger, and I knew about the chest burster. I knew all that stuff was coming, but there still was this deeper mystery about what was going on that was revealed throughout the process of the story. But then this one, you kind of know what's going to happen in the sense of if they're going to go back to this planet with these aliens, this is not going to go well. And of course, also and I knew about the iconic scene at the end with
The
the
power
robotic,
loader.
yeah, the power loader, Chekhov's power loader, because once you see it early on, you know it's coming back. But but I was struck that so because there's several very specific beats that are plot beats that are in some ways the same. There is one of the members of the crew is a traitor who's really working for the company's interest and against the crew, right? When
Hmm.
the android in the first movie and Paul Reiser in this movie. Um, the child Newt is the cat in this movie. It's the same basic notion. Oh, go ahead.
The cat wasn't put into direct jeopardy quite so much as
No,
Newt
it's the cat
was.
on steroids, and of course, Newt is more as a human being. But I mean, the basic
But
function that
it's
she
also like,
performs.
but Newt is essential to Ripley's character, where the cat wasn't essential to her
mm,
character in the first movie.
Maybe not. I mean, it does serve the exact same plot point where at the end she has to go looking for the kid.
Hmm.
And then the ending is, I think, far too derivative in some ways. The idea that you think they've escaped, but still there's alien on the ship with them, and then Ripley has to have a final battle with the alien to then flush the alien out into space. They're just the parallels to me are quite striking, even if they're not obviously perfect parallels. So in that ways, it feels like a sequel in that sense more than maybe I would have liked. But I do think that you're right that it's a different kind of movie, and therefore it stands alone in that regard.
Yeah, so I think in both cases, something bad is going to happen, right?
Sure.
It's the whole point of the movie, right?
Right.
You're not going to go into this movie expecting rainbows and unicorns,
Right.
and I think that you're right that there's this buildup of dread in this movie that's a lot shorter,
Hmm.
and then it segues into being an action movie.
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I would say, and again, I'm encountering it in a different way, and it affects the way it gets viewed. I never felt dread in this movie because the difference is, I think like the first movie is there's a weird house we're going to go to, but we don't know what's in the weird house. And
Hmm.
obviously, we know that it's a movie about a weird house. Something bad's going to be in the house, but we don't know what it is. And so there's a tension in Alien about not knowing really what it is you're dealing with. In this movie, when you say to me, remember that weird house we went to where all the vampires lived? We're going to go back there now. So you know you're going to encounter the vampires. So, I mean, there was no dread to me that when they go back, I mean, it was clear from the beginning that this stupid company that wants whatever it is they want from this planet was dumb enough to send colonists there
Hmm.
because they want something from this technology or these aliens or whatever. And it's going to be bad and the aliens are going to be, there to have to deal with. That part, so I didn't feel any dread from that part, from my perspective. Just knowing that
So
there's going to be a problem was obvious, but
yeah, I mean, but the shape of the problem you
yeah.
didn't necessarily know fully because in the extended version of this, there's a setup scene that I'm very glad Cameron decided to cut it for
Hmm.
the final movie, and you see the colonists on LV-426, which they've nicknamed Hadley's Hope, and you see them living their lives under the shadow that we all know of
Right.
the alien menace, and you see somebody kind of get face hugged, and it's I think it's way more effective for the movie to start not knowing exactly what's wrong with the colony, that you
Hmm.
just sit there, you gasp when you find out that they have sanctioned a colony on this planet. It's
Hmm.
insane,
Hmm.
and monstrous, but they've done it, and
Right.
then everything has gone silent, and then it is indeed the scarier thing of not knowing what it is that's going to happen
Right.
versus you kind of know because this movie's been around for a long time and
I think
you
that's
have
part of the problem. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
well, I mean, you call a movie Aliens, and it's a sequel
yeah.
to a movie about an alien that was really hard to kill. So I guess, I mean, I think the most dramatic thing in the film was the fact that they had sort of, I don't know what the word I want is. They'd imprisoned these humans to use as sort of incubators. That was, a
Hmm.
surprise. And then they weren't just all dead. I guess I sort of anticipated these are all going to be dead or having been already been used to incubate more xenomorphs. But anyway, yeah, I mean, in some ways, it just there's a inherent difficulty in watching a 40-year-old movie. and and and
Yeah,
and not knowing anything and experiencing it the same way you would experience it if you'd shown up at the theater at the time.
yeah. Because we knew it wasn't going to be exactly the same, or at least we
Hmm.
hoped it wasn't going to be
Right.
exactly the same. But again, we didn't know what to expect
No, I do
exactly.
think, and I will reiterate, I think that one of the things that speaks to this movie's quality is that it's a slightly different genre than the first movie.
Right.
And I think that matters.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a certain point, the ambush scene, where
Hmm.
almost the nature of the movie changes. It's kind of wound you up to that point, and then there's this very long release, of one high octane scene after another.
Hmm. Oh,
Very
yes,
few downbeats in
that's true.
once the ambush happens. There's a ton of foreshadowing in the first part of the movie. As you mentioned, the power loader and
Hmm.
other
Hmm.
things that get foreshadowed spectacularly. Once you kind of look back and it's like, oh yeah, they really did tell us that was going to happen, didn't they? You've got the cocky Marines, the
Yes,
inhuman corporation,
yes,
stupid people on planet Earth, kind of like looking for somebody to blame and effectively kind of putting Ripley on trial for what happened with
yes.
Nostromo in the first movie. Um, so has your belief that corporations can be that evil increased, decreased, or stayed the same since the 1980s when this movie was made?
Oh, it's definitely increased, but I think my general attitude about all these things has evolved since the 80s. I mean, I would say that in the 80s it was often a trope that corporations were evil,
Yeah,
but always felt a little melodramatic at times, although not
yeah.
unbelievable. Um,
Well, it was big in the 70s. I mean, it was always like
yeah,
there is evil co and the hearts know too much.
or just
Somebody needs to do something about them,
the notion
and
that corporations that would rule the world, which was, I think, really kind of a staple in science fiction, even going back to the 50s and 60s, but was especially prevalent in the time you're talking about, didn't seem quite as realistic as maybe it does now. I'm not a spoiler for Alien Earth, which I know you haven't watched, but
mhm.
it does focus more on these corporations and it definitely is drawing on contemporary politics and society, in that one of the main characters is definitely a sort of a tech billionaire type who runs one of these corporations and all that goes along with that. I think, in fact, and I don't really, and I have no idea. And we talked about this in the first film, and you said some of the comics dealt with it. I don't know if this
Mhm.
TV show will deal with it adequately or not. I think one of the things that is partially missing to in my again, I'm the one that worries about this stuff more than you do. The what the motivation of these corporations it could be more of a mystery in the first film, in a way that while I was kind of curious about it, it didn't really bother me as much. This one, because we go back to Earth and we encounter the corporation itself, and the fact that somehow they can command Marines, I would have liked a little bit more understanding of why that was the case, but it wasn't that important to me. But the fact that they're clearly willing to risk so many lives, what they're really trying to get, except something, I would have liked a little more motivation and understanding, just a little bit. I know that's not your thing, but I just think, why are you willing to then, one, why did you want this thing in the first place? I don't know if I
Well,
need
they
to know
wanted they
exactly
want it for
why.
the bioweapons
The
division.
bioweapon, which is fine, but then after all that, I just don't know how placing a colony there makes any sense, except to create the context for the film. It
Hmm.
just there was not enough for me to understand why in the world they did this thing, and why. I guess I forget always what's Paul Reiser's character's name. Is it Burke?
Yeah,
Um,
Bart.
yeah, Burke. Why would he? Surely they know enough that he would want to go on this mission and risk all this. It's like, how are they really this? Are they just? Are they just? They really are that ignorant of what they're getting themselves into, or are they
Or
not?
arrogant.
Or
Well,
arrogant?
so I'll say this, having worked in the corporate world,
Sure,
corporations in the real world often do things for very fuzzy reasons.
sure.
No, they're
Oh,
not very well thought out. And I didn't have a problem accepting that they wanted to do something with these creatures. Maybe they
Hmm.
didn't have any clear idea what that was. But they had left this important corporate asset as they saw it back on, LV
All right.
426, and why this was the mechanism for them to bring it back, who knows? And I actually think that that's one important distinction between these two movies and other movies depicting
Hmm.
evil corporations, is that you don't see the people in charge. And in
Right.
a way, I think that simplifies things from a plot perspective, that you don't
It
have to
does.
then
Oh,
have
yeah.
people explain their thinking through all the machinations behind, putting the colonists there, for example. And it also makes it a little more frightening because there is nobody to appeal to. There is no
Right.
somebody you can call at the top of the chain of command. You're kind of stuck with this horrible situation, and you have to survive it as best you can.
Maybe this is the punch up that would have made me happier or would have made me think about this less. So it's 57 years later. Um, they know they lost the Nostromo. They clearly knew something to begin with. They wouldn't have diverted the Nostromo to that planet in the first place.
Mhm.
Maybe this colony was more of a research facility, or they were researching what they found on the planet instead of just being what seems to me, at least maybe I've only watched the movie once, so maybe I misunderstood. It just seemed like a straight up colony with like families and well, clearly,
Yes.
and I mean, I guess if they had explained that they were trying to foolishly harness this technology and then it went south, that would have made a little more sense to me than just we put a whole human colony there because why not? Despite what we kind of know, that just doesn't. It's almost like creating the stakes in a way that I just doesn't track for me. But again, I'm nitpicking a very minor thing that doesn't really have a direct influence on the overall movie. And I know I think about these things in a way that you don't, and that's
Oh,
cool.
these are the right questions to ask. But I think I probably am willing to give more of the benefit of the doubt to the power of human arrogance.
Sure.
They're gonna, somebody's going to encounter the wrecked spaceship, and they'll figure out how to deal with it. Right? It's not going to get out of control the way that it completely spirals out of control
Sure.
in practice. Or the mission, as sort of like the Marines mission as a microcosm. They're going in with clearly an incredible amount of arrogance about
Yeah.
their ability to manage the situation.
I guess the disconnect for me, which again is necessary in some ways for the film to roll out the way that it does, is it I guess it seems to me that somebody somewhere knows more than they're sharing. And and while I accept, God knows, I accept the notion of human arrogance, human stupidity, and miscalculation. I also the one thing about these films that kind of bumps me a little bit is if somebody clearly knows more than they're letting on, and if they really want to accomplish their goals, they're not very good managers because they're not sharing information that's kind of important to achieve their goals. Now it's becoming a management seminar. How to exploit
Right.
exotechnology to create your bioweapons. Or maybe they just don't care, and that's fair. But if you, because, but clearly they're willing to sacrifice in the first movie and in the second movie, they're willing to sacrifice the entire team, whether it's the crew of the Nostromo or it's this Marine group, this tactical group here, to get what they want, and that's evil, and that fits within the story. They just not, I guess they're just not very smart about getting what they want, in my opinion. But that's then maybe that's the tale that human stupidity is what it is. But we can we can move on
Okay.
from
You
this.
you want movies to be less stupid than real life is.
Not necessarily. I want it to either be
I'm half
either.
kidding about that.
I know you are. I know you are, and I understand why you say it though. I don't want to be distracted by trying to understand. I think fairly obvious mistakes. Although granted, I can we could have an entire podcast, and I didn't work in the corporate world. I worked in academia, and I worked in upper administration.
Hmm.
Like we can tell tales of stupidity there as well. That so people are dumb. I get it. Um, but some of it just kind of bothers me a little bit. But that's all right.
Okay. All right. Well, we've hashed, I think, that particular point out.
More likely
Um,
than not, yes.
More
Sorry,
likely than not.
listeners. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, that's fine. So anyway, I'm apologizing. So
Oh,
I'm forgiving you on behalf of the listeners. I don't know if they actually
no,
forgive
no,
this
it's
long discussion or not, but
special dispensation. That's
special
all right.
dispensation.
But there is
Okay.
smoking in this movie. Sorry.
Yeah.
The first time I get out of a deep sleep and one guy gets a cigar out, I'm like, dude, you've got a problem.
Yeah. So anyway, the first part of the
I'm sorry.
movie, yes, I know. It's your thing about smoking in space.
That's right.
You've never been a smoker.
No, I never have.
I've never been a smoker.
I've smoked a cigar twice and decided I did not care for it.
My family made smoking so unappealing, I would never become a smoker.
It just, dad doesn't, I don't like, mm-mm.
Yeah. Anyway, uh, on to other things.
Yes,
So
please.
there's the setup. We not only get a sense that, something seriously wrong with the colony,
Yes.
although they're at first not willing to admit the seriousness of the situation. We get sort of the Dirty Dozen like setup of the colonial Marines. We get to meet a lot of them and see what they're like. How effective do you think that was as kind of setting up all the people you're going to see later in the action movie part
So
of it?
this is the part that felt maybe the most 80s to me.
Okay.
Just the way in which the characters behaved, the way they talked to one another, sort of the bravado and arrogance, but also kind of almost cartoonish, like I'm this guy, I'm the tough lady, I'm the dumb lieutenant. That part felt very I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it just felt like other movies that I watched in the era. This sort of very gung ho, and you know they're gonna not be able to do what they're acting like they can do. That they're going in totally like arrogant about their capacity, overestimating their capacity to deal with whatever horror it is that they're about to deal with. That's
Mhm.
how I noticed it.
Yeah, I mean, there's that exchange. I don't think it gets a lot of attention from people who are fans of this movie. The exchange between Vasquez and Ripley,
Uh-huh.
where Vasquez says, "All you need to know is where they are,"
Right.
and then kind of Ripley takes like a step forward and says, "I hope you're right. I really hope you're right."
Right. Right.
That was
Right.
really good acting there, I thought.
It was. Yeah, it was. The arrogance of the lieutenant was a bit over the top, I thought, but I guess, this is supposed to you have to set up the disaster and Ripley being able to take over and sort of save the day.
Yeah. Well, that's a meme.
Oh yeah.
The LT who's really just in way over his head.
Oh yes.
38 simulated.
And the fact that he
Um,
was named Lieutenant Gorman kept me thinking about Andor. Just Gorman's a bad thing all the way around. Just always a disaster, I guess.
yeah, nothing good happens with a Gorman.
Apparently not.
Okay, and so then we do have, the big shift in the movie when they're in the colony. They've blundered into the nest of aliens
Hmm.
without realizing it, that they're surrounded by them,
Yes.
which I think is the one of the biggest oh crap moments in movie history. Just, that they're just coming out of the walls. They're just
Hmm.
standing next to the creatures. They don't know that they're there. There are frequently shots where suddenly something moves
Right.
where you as the viewer didn't realize you were looking straight at
Right.
one of the aliens. Like, there's the guy who's like getting dragged towards the APC, and actually the alien is in the foreground
Hmm.
and it suddenly moves. Anyway, I thought that was
No, as well, it
incredibly
was,
effective.
I think, a very well staged and directed set of scenes.
Yeah, and
Which,
the oh crap of they're like, later on, like when somebody says, oh, their life signs are still beeping
yeah,
here on the
that's
screen.
right.
Yeah,
That's right. That was a good scene. So you're the aficionado in this. Were these aliens easier to kill than the one in the first movie? Because it felt like they were, or were they just better armed?
I think they were just better armed. They had to improvise weapons in the first movie.
That's true.
And here, they came locked and loaded, kind of expecting combat, though clearly not prepared for what they got. Anyway, and just like all the little details of the movie, just as in the first movie, I thought were extremely good. For example,
Yes.
that the kind of thinking through, like, okay, you do the combat drop, you just drop the APC there, you fly off to a different location because you don't want to put your transport into jeopardy, although it
Hmm.
really was,
Right.
unbeknownst to them, that they drive into the colony in a particular way. Anyway, it felt like a military operation,
No, I
actually,
agree.
where
I
like
agree.
frequently in action movies, it just seems like people running into the face of death. And
Right. No,
No
that's
actual
true.
tactics to it.
That's right. I feel like, as I recall, the way they even spread out from the drop ship, they were like surveying the land and looking different directions and trying to, yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't just guns ablazing.
yeah. And then after the ambush, the kind of the middle part of the movie is really a prolonged siege. Things keep getting worse and worse for them. You know, the dropship crashes.
Hmm.
They realize that the fusion reactor is going to blow up,
That's right.
and so they're trying to come up with a plan, any plan, in order to survive this and get off the planet before the.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just that was another beat that was similar to the first movie,
Mhm.
an impending explosion.
An explosion in an action movie?
Well, I mean that's basically self-destruct. I mean, the
Yes,
ship was going to blow up, and then in this case, the colony was going to blow up. Not just an explosion, but the explosion.
right. You also see, I think this is where you see people reveal themselves, right? That
Hmm.
this is, under the stress of the situation, we knew that Carter Burke was probably slimy,
Right.
from earlier scenes.
Sure.
He was he came off as a nice guy, but you had
What
your
were the odds?
suspicions. What
What
were
were
the
the odds?
odds? Gorman was not up to this job, but he wasn't a
Nope.
terrible person.
That's right.
You get to see Hudson fall apart from his bravado that he was
Hmm.
displaying earlier in the movie. Hicks is, clearly the solid leader in this, aside from Ripley, and you see a lot about Ripley.
Yes.
So in an era when we've had now decades of action movie heroes, um, what did you think of Ripley as an action movie hero?
So I think that's a good question. I didn't think about it in comparative terms, but I would say that she is a reluctant action hero. That part is, I think, a little different, right? She's not like
Hmm.
I'm here to save the day. But she acts as she needs.
Yeah.
Like the scene with the vehicle when she takes over basically and rescues as many of them as she can. She's aware of her circumstances. She's smart and she's willing to act, and she's also compassionate. She worries about all the people who might be harmed,
Hmm.
including cats, but that's in the previous movie. But anyway,
It's a
nonetheless,
stand-in for humanity,
apparently.
the cat.
So no, I think I mean I think she stands out. She's not. I don't think she's not a stereotype or a cliche or a trope. What do you think?
Yeah, she really is somebody who's cleaning up messes,
Yes.
and I think you gave the best example of that. Kind of taking the wheel of the APC and trying to
Hmm.
get into the colony to save whomever they could.
Yes.
After Gorman freezes, which again, people freeze in the real
Sure.
world, right? I mean, that
Oh
was
yeah.
another thing I thought, like, especially on the rewatch, it's like, yeah, that happens.
Oh sure.
Especially since this is his first actual combat. A lot of people will emphasize the maternal aspect of her
Hmm.
as a protagonist. I think that's definitely there, but it's not the only thing.
Right.
I think that, her relationship with Newt in the extended version, they had a scene where she finds out that something we didn't know at all existed. Her daughter had passed away because she
Hmm.
had been gone for
Sure.
6 decades practically, and that person had grown old and died. And then, that apparently what Cameron was trying to do was to set up the transference of maternal feelings from her own daughter to Newt, this
Right.
child in jeopardy. Didn't need that. I'm glad they didn't do it. I
No,
think
I, I
it
agree.
would have cheapened it horribly. It's just that it seemed like Ripley was always in both movies a good person who wanted to help people out of the
Yes.
worst possible situation imaginable. Anyway, that's kind of what I thought about her. I thought her motivations were more real, or
Hmm.
more plausible in an era of action movies when you often did wonder, like, what's this
Right.
Schwarzenegger guy doing here
Right. That's right.
in some of the lesser Schwarzenegger movies of the 80s?
Well, one thing I think too, she's smarter than some of her compatriots. I'm actually smarter than most of them in both movies, actually. She's
Yeah.
again to get back to my observation about the first film. If we just follow procedure, we'd be a whole lot better off.
And then there's the final battle, which
Hmm.
is very fast paced, as you say. It kind of repeats going back for somebody as a trope. There's the reveal of the queen, which was set up, earlier in the movie. Okay, where are all these eggs coming from? Well, I guess it's something that
Right.
we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Um, so you knew there was a queen
Hmm.
because this is an old movie and you've seen the queen before, but was there
I
any
don't.
surprise to that
I
scene?
don't know that I'd seen. I mean, I think maybe I was vaguely aware. So that was mostly that was most a surprise to me. I didn't. I don't think I had a lot of information about that. The main thing I knew about this movie was there were a bunch of aliens.
Yeah.
That's but that's not hard to infer. And that really the final scene with the power loader. I think that's the thing that really knew
Yeah.
the most.
Yeah, where she blunders into the room full of the eggs,
Hmm.
that was a shock when you first saw that,
Oh,
and
sure.
then
It was.
you look up and again it's a scene like, what am I looking at? And you realize, oh my God, it is this horrible thing that's laying the eggs, the queen.
There
Uh,
was something in that scene. There seemed to be a weird stalemate going on for a little while that I didn't totally understand. But I don't.
oh, okay. So there was
Did
some silent communication going on between the queen and the other aliens, like who are like
right.
slowly moving in to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
at Ripley, and then the queen somehow communicates
Right.
back off, and they do.
But I mean,
It's,
why did you? I again, I've only seen it once. Why did they just attack? Was there some
oh,
obvious
because
reason?
yeah, because Ripley was threatening the eggs. Like
I see.
those are her babies.
Yeah, right. No, that I get
Yeah,
that. I just wasn't sure why they didn't take her. They seemed to be more circumspect about attacking. Given her capacity, I'm not sure how much capacity. I don't know how much she really could have, how much damage she could have done, given how quickly those
right.
xenomorphs attack. It was a little. It did kind of didn't totally understand what was going
So
on
then
at
you had
that
the
point.
good mother, bad mother
Yeah,
face
yeah,
off.
that's okay. Okay.
The Joan Crawford
Yeah.
of space.
They don't
Um,
use wire hangers. Anyway,
anyway, so it's really a roller coaster ride from start
it
to
is.
finish,
It is.
and it got me even on this rewatch. It it's a movie that I know everything that's going to happen. I
Hmm.
practically know every line of dialogue that someone is going to say, and yet I still feel my heart in my throat when I'm watching it.
It's a very exciting movie. Yeah, and
For for 2 hours and 17 minutes, I think it's incredibly paced.
it is.
And
It is.
again, I think that the extra scenes would have detracted from the movie in a lot of different ways, not least of which would have been just the extra
Slow,
time
yeah,
not
the
needed. There was another
pacing, right?
scene with these sentry guns that are firing automatically against the aliens. There's like waves of them coming
Mm,
that you don't see really directly. You just kind
hmm.
of are watching them as watching the main characters see the bullet counters go down
Hmm.
as it's just
Hmm.
wiping out aliens after aliens, but they're still coming.
Right.
So that would have maybe added something to the sense that this was a relentless opponent. But they would have been so marginal at that point. Again glad that they omitted that scene. Um, what so the same saying the word scene over and over again. What scenes to you were the most effective?
I mean, I don't know that I made a list of scenes. I think that because they all kind of again on the one viewing, it's hard to differentiate. I mean, the Ripley's rescue scene is the one that really comes to mind. The uh, the scenes where they reveal that the humans are being kind of used as kept alive as incubators,
Hmm.
that was jarring. And then, of course, the scenes toward the end with the Queen and then Ripley's escape. And I like the scene where the dropship appears, and that was a good scene. I was struck at the beginning with the when they I liked the usage of light and blocking when they cut the door open on Ripley's ship at the very beginning and
Hmm.
come in. I like with the first movie, I thought the scene where there's a different setup when they all wake up from cryo sleep, that's a good scene. There's a lot of it's a well shot, well blocked, well directed film.
Yeah, I would also throw in the the scene at the beginning where they are doing the board of inquiry and
Hmm.
they just kind of demonstrate how stupid they are
Oh yeah.
or how arrogant they are. Again, I kind of dwell on that now. I don't know why I would be having corporate arrogance and greed
I
on my
don't
mind these
I
days,
don't
but
know. It's hard to say.
yeah, but because originally it seemed cartoonish when I saw the movie. I mean,
Right.
like a lot of that, as you said, it was a theme in a lot of 80s, even 70s action, 70s
Yeah,
movies. Except in the 70s, they wore turtlenecks with sport coats over them.
sure. Who
But
doesn't?
it's easy to spot the evil people then if they,
I'm too warm-natured to wear a turtleneck with a sport coat.
yeah.
It's got to be awfully cold.
Well, you're in Alabama, so
That's
it does get cold in Alabama, I know, but
it
still.
does on
Yeah,
occasion, but
but not for the more humid, hot days. It's
no.
not the attire. Plus, you'd be by that consistent fashion choice revealing your innate evil.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to this just for a second, I mean, you're not wrong. Because I was thinking about this in a totally different context. Yesterday, I was listening to a story about AI and whether we're in an AI bubble and yada yada yada, and all of the money that's being poured into this particular set of investments, and the degree to which, yes, I think it's something I don't totally understand, which maybe fits into the theme of this movie,
Hmm.
uh, which is how much money is enough money, man?
Yeah,
And
no
and
kidding.
and also, what's the actual goal? And when you have so this part, I think, does work even without any other explanation for these corporations that are relevant to this movie, which is the sort of willingness to, when you have a lot of money that you can invest, that you get obsessed with like the next thing in a way that
Hmm.
doesn't always make fully rational sense. So I'm on board with your notion that corporations don't always act necessarily in an optimal, rational, logical fashion, and human stupidity is one constant in the universe that I don't disagree with. And on one level, you're not wrong to say whatever anybody does is plausible because lots of dumb things are done. But
Yes.
um, so yeah, I found that that was a good scene. And yeah, clearly the corporation is a bit daft. It's just I don't know. I'm not going to revisit that conversation, but yeah, it was a good scene.
Yeah. And I would also highlight the final scene, the final confrontation between Ripley
Oh yeah,
and the
yeah,
Queen. Not just because it was exciting, kind of
yes,
by virtue of the story up to that point, but the Queen is just a big puppet.
yeah,
That is like just a really great technical accomplishment to make
yes.
an
No,
exciting fight scene between a big chunky power loader, with
hmm
the actress in it and this giant puppet. I mean, but it works. You'd think it would be the most awkward, clumsy thing imaginable, but it was pretty damn exciting.
It was. No, the visuals in both these movies, but in this movie, there's the effects in the visuals are very impressive.
Yeah. Did anything seem particularly dated about the effects? There was
I'm not.
occasionally like a little rear projection that
Mm,
I saw that like maybe wasn't something that you would see in this day and age, but otherwise, I just thought that looks great. I mean,
no, it did look good. It did.
yeah,
I mean, I'd have to watch it multiple times to start, to move on from my nitpicking of character motivation to nitpicking the special effects. But
yeah. So
I
this is
didn't.
yeah, go
Nothing really
ahead.
stuck in my head. No, go ahead.
Okay, so this is a very quotable movie. Any other quotes stand out for you?
They did not. I think this was really a case of me. Once is just not enough to get the quote stuck in my head. The only one that stuck in my head was which was also a very 80s kind of statement when one of the Marines asked Vasquez if anybody mistook her for a man, and she said, "No, do they mistake you?" I can't remember the quote, but
Yeah.
do they mistake you for a man? Yeah, but beyond that, no. Yeah, so that's the only one that really stuck in my head for whatever reason, because I was looking for a quote for the top of the show, and I had to search to find the one about the elevator to hell. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I would say sort of a lifelong quote for me is I say we take off and nuke the facility from orbit.
Oh,
It's the
that's
only way
yeah.
to be sure.
That's right. No, that's actually I'm glad you brought that up because that's the one thing that I beyond the power loader thing, that's
Hmm.
the one thing I knew about from this movie, with Nuke It from Space. That's yeah, that's something that I've
Yeah.
encountered over the years,
You've
knowing a
encountered,
friends.
so you haven't encountered Game Over, man? Game Over?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh,
Not
okay.
not to be knowing what it was. That sounds too generic. It could be if I didn't know where it was from, that could be from
Yeah.
various
I
places.
think that was an improvised line
Mm,
in the movie. Anyway, Hudson doesn't get all the great quotes though. Like I think some of the most famous ones are
hmm
his lines, but there are other ones like, I say we take off and nuke the facility from orbit.
Yeah.
That, yeah. So we said it's a different movie and than the previous movie in some ways, and definitely not in others. Anything else that you want to call out that was fairly consistent or different between the two movies?
No, I think we've covered it
Okay.
adequately.
How would you rank this as a sequel compared to other sequels that we've seen?
So I mean, I think it would be up there in this pantheon of sequels that are on par with the original. And again, like I said at the top of the podcast, I think Alien's a better movie, but I
Hmm.
don't think this is not like I don't know what's a good comp. The like Rocky 2 in some ways feels like just a rehash of Rocky 1 with a slightly
Yeah.
different twist. So only Rocky 3 is. I mean, they're all basically movies about a guy who eventually has a fight at the end. So, um, or I don't know what's another example of a not particularly good good sequel. I mean, all the Jaws sequels are kind of lame.
Yeah.
A lot of the horror franchises are just rehashing the same story over and over again. I mean, movies that really have superior. I mean, the most famous superior, and still, I gotta admit that I haven't seen it yet. I know Godfather 2 is supposed to be as good, if not better, than Godfather 1. I mean, obviously, we think Star Trek 2 is better than the motion picture.
Oh, yeah.
Empire Strikes Back is in many ways a superior film to Star Wars, although Star Wars is
Hmm.
unique in its own way. But a lot of these, especially in the 80s, where they would churn out these sequels, they were just rehashes of the first film, usually
Right.
inferior to the first film, usually with a cast and crew that is inferior to the first film.
Hmm.
I find it, I find it intriguing. I know that James Cameron didn't really become James Cameron until later, but after the Terminator, he was up there, right? So,
Yeah.
and again, Ridley Scott became Ridley Scott later too. I understand that this is early in both of their careers, but it's kind of striking. Ridley Scott made the first film, James Cameron made the second film, and didn't David Fincher make the third film?
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting murderer's road, regardless of what you think about. I know Alien 3 is not considered all that good, or at least you don't, and what I've read since suggests that's true. That's still a pretty remarkable string of people making movies when usually like the first movie was like somebody maybe of significance, and the second movie is some guy they found in the, in the coffee shop to make the movie. It's not usually the
Right.
same kind of quality.
Well, it's interesting. I think that to make a good sequel is, I think, a real test of the filmmaker.
Yes.
And I'm saying that not because I believe in the auteur theory of filmmaking that the director is everything. As
No,
we said in the Alien episode, there was a lot of collaboration
of
that went
course.
into that on the part of Dan O'Bannon and others, who contributed to that movie. Same here. It wasn't
Sure.
just Cameron, but Cameron did two great sequels in the 80s,
Hmm.
to his own movie, The
Yeah.
Terminator, as well
Yes.
as somebody else's movie,
Yeah.
Aliens. And I think that takes skill. I mean,
It does.
just to not rehash things. I mean, David Fincher doing Alien 3, not a good movie. It was the result of its own sort of corporate mess
Hmm.
behind the scenes in the making of that film. So it wasn't really a testament at all or a condemnation of David Fincher's later talents. You couldn't
Right.
really tell from that movie anything about him. But a lot of people will take their own work and fumble
Hmm.
it, as I
Yes.
think Ridley Scott did later with his involvement with the Alien franchise. They'll take other people's work and fumble it.
Sure.
It's a task, of some significant challenge to be able to make a good sequel.
No, sequels are hard. And some things shouldn't be made into sequels. It really does strike me though that this is, I mean, these two really in particular, because I haven't seen the others, it really is striking to me how, well, I agree with you. No film is just the director, but these are two men who have clear visions about how to make movies.
Mhm.
and it
Right.
clearly manifests in these films in an impressive way. So yeah, I think it ranks up there in that regard. I mean, again, you can we can quibble in comparisons, but they're both good films.
And here's the weird thing. Cameron, it made one of the most commercially successful movies of all time with Avatar.
Hmm.
And
And
I,
Titanic.
and Titanic. Well, there's no sequel to Titanic, but there is a sequel
Oh, there should be. No.
to Avatar.
Titanic 2, the floating
Yeah.
door.
Um, but it's I did not enjoy the second Avatar movie.
I
I
haven't
was
seen
never a
it.
big Avatar fan,
I
but I
haven't
really
watched
was
even the first one.
disappointed by
Yeah.
his ability to pull off a sequel again.
I really don't know why I think this because I have no, so I'm about to express an opinion based on nothing. Why not? Um, my entire impression of the Avatar stuff has just been a big bloated thing that I just don't feel the need to get involved in for some reason.
Yeah, we'll talk about tired tropes,
Yeah,
the noble savages, and anyway, it. But still, I don't think that it was impossible for him to make a good second Avatar movie,
sure.
and it bored me. Where this movie is
I
the
know what
opposite
it
of
is.
boredom.
The thing that kept me away is that and I could be wrong about this. So I know why I'm talking about something I don't know anything about, but why not? We're podcasters. That's what we do, right?
Mhm.
Um, it felt like that franchise is more in love with the technology than it is about the story. That's what it feels like from the outside.
Yes.
In some ways, the same way, speaking of people that didn't do good jobs of sequels of their own work, that I think that George Lucas got too in love with some of the CGI and digital
Hmm.
technology when he made the prequel series that he got more focused on that than he did on the story of those movies. So yeah.
Yeah. So my verdict about Avatar is: did you ever have a copy of Barlow's Guide to
Yes.
Extraterrestrials?
Yes.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, there was an artist, Wayne Barlow, who specialized in doing alien creatures.
Hmm.
And there's like another book about exploring a world, a fictional world, obviously, full of aliens that he did. He's really terrific at it. Barlow's Guide to
Oh yeah.
Extraterrestrials are aliens out of particular science fiction books. And it's a beautiful book to look at.
It is.
And I felt that way about Avatar. It was beautiful to look at,
Sure.
but it just lost me
Yeah. And
in most
anyway,
other ways.
we had mentioned that Barlow's Guide way early in the podcast, but anyone who's interested who
Oh, that's right, we did.
it does
Yeah.
you can find it online for free. It's in the Internet Archive or some similar repository. So if you Google it, you can find it as a PDF. You can look at the art.
Hmm.
So it's worth a look, especially if you're interested in any of the books we talked about on this show.
Yeah. Any actors who stood out for you?
So I mean, I think the actors that stood out for me was Sigourney Weaver, obviously. I think to some degree, Paul Reiser I thought did a good job in this film.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and then Bill Paxton, but I knew who he was, stuck out. And I forgot the name of the one that played Vasquez. Those are the ones that really kind of, I think, distinguished themselves for me in this film. Although I think I'm forgetting people. I like the guy that played the android too. I thought he did a good job.
Lance Henriksen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was in a show that I really enjoyed, Millennium. It
I
was
never watched it, but yeah,
done by the same people who did the X-Files.
yeah,
Anyway, he was really good in that. Particularly the second season was good, and it kind of is lost in the mists of time now.
yes,
And then there's sort of the enduring mystery of what happened to Michael Biehn. That he was in The Terminator. He was really good in that. He was in this movie. He was
yeah.
really good in that. And then his career just didn't take off the way that you might have
He wanted to
expected.
play Mr. Bean, but Rowan Atkinson stopped him from doing
Oh, and he
so.
was in The Abyss. He was the bad guy
Yeah.
in The Abyss.
Mm,
Good actor, but unfortunately, his career was not the rocket ship to fame.
mm.
Okay. Any other final thoughts about the movie?
So I'll return to something I said up top. So I was at first very excited about James Horner's being the scorer of this film,
Hmm.
and then and partly is I think I am super steeped. I think more than you are. I am super steeped in the soundtrack of Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3. I've listened to it
Hmm.
for decades over and over again, and That the soundtrack to this movie is, I don't know what the percentage is. It's a huge percentage. It is a retread of those two soundtracks. And in fact, I read that in fact that was the case. I'm not crazy. That he was put in a very short time frame to write the
Hmm.
score and really end up recycling a bunch of his own music. So there's like some of the stuff that sounds almost exactly like the Klingon theme from Star Trek 3. There's a segment where, and it may even be the segment you're talking near the segment you're talking about earlier.
Hmm.
It is almost the same music. At least part of it is the same music without some of the trumpets from when Khan's recounting to check off how they got, you know, the Botany Bay and
Hmm.
how they got stranded on City Alpha 5. And I mean, it is because I know the music so well, it was a little jarring to me how much it sounded like those soundtracks. Because
Yeah.
again, I think it's so that it's not bad music. I like the music. It was striking to me how much it was cribbed.
Okay. Little tidbits here to wrap things up. This is the first time the aliens are called xenomorphs.
Hmm.
Someone uses that in this movie, and that's a term that stuck. Because I don't think anything else is called a xenomorph other than the creatures from these movies.
I think that's correct.
Vasquez's
That's what I knew
name,
knew them to be called. I thought that's what they were called in the first movie, but they weren't. But yeah.
yeah. So Vasquez's name is supposedly a nod to Vasquez Rocks, the
Ah,
sedimentary formation that pops up in oh so many TV shows and movies over the years.
yes. Where Kirk
Um,
fights the Gorn.
yep. And I think anybody who watches these movies and enjoys them should stop at the first two movies. As I mentioned, Alien 3 is not good. Alien 4, not my favorite movie. And it kind of then, begs the question of like, if you really like something, how much of it do you want to consume? Like, like sometimes I think my inclination is certainly to go off and like find everything
Right.
about something that I liked that I can possibly imagine. Like, we did an episode on Godzilla, right? So
Right.
if you
Right.
watch the first Godzilla movie, you watch the latest Godzilla movie, do you need to go off and see more Godzilla movies?
Hmm.
No, I mean they're not all bad. There's
Right.
some stinkers in there, but there are some really good ones. But I think someone could be a very satisfied film goer if they
Hmm.
saw Alien and Aliens and nothing else. I mean, did you feel an urge to see anything more after?
Well,
I mean, you're not
okay.
in love with this movie the way I am, but did
I
you,
watched, like I said, it was enough for me to watch the
other than
TV
Alien Earth?
series.
Yeah.
I watched that partially because I liked the work that uh, Noah Hawley did on the Fargo TV series. So I was
Hmm.
blend, and plus I like it's got Timothy Olyphant, who I was a fan of. So I
Oh
was
yeah.
I was curious enough, and I'm sure it's only like 8 episodes. I'm sure I'll finish it relatively soon. But
But would
I
you
mean,
want to go see the movie that purports to be the origin story of the Xenomorphs?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I'll put it this way. So how about this? So there's a universe in which I know nothing about these films, and there's a universe in which that I exist in where I have some feedback on these movies. Having watched the first two,
Hmm.
in a generic sense, and again, this speaks to sort of the way I tend to consume this stuff. Yeah, I would be interested in finding out. As I said in the first movie, I still feel this way. Like, what are these corporations after? What really? How does this all work on? What's the current state of Earth? You know, how does this fit into the broader universe? I'd be willing to see interesting stories about those things. Now, what I do know, at least based on what you've said, but I already knew this before we ever talked about doing any of this. I know that the general critical and sort of zeitgeisty approach to these films is that the first two are very good. The third one's not. Alien 3 is not that great. Alien Resurrection is not that great. I know that Prometheus didn't get particularly good reviews. I guess Romulus has got slightly better reviews, but I don't, So I would, the part of me that likes to explore worlds and understand broader story context is intrigued by the possibility of doing so. But I also know that based on what the sort of consensus is on the next couple of films, that maybe it's not worth my time.
Yeah, I would argue strongly that's the case, and it's because with Prometheus, it answers questions that didn't need answers,
Hmm.
and I think it diminishes the franchise hugely in the
Mm.
telling. And I think also like with Romulus, I didn't see the movie. I read about it. I read some reviews, and it seemed like too much repetition. And in fact, like it borrows lines from the
Mm.
first two movies is the most explicit form of repetition
Right.
possible. But at the same time, like, if it's just another poor working class people get stuck in a situation with
Right.
the xenomorph, it's like, okay, I
No,
don't need more of that.
I guess this is in some of my impression, which may again be inaccurate about the next two in particular, and maybe I don't want to see another story that's exactly the same basic plot outline. This one, while I talked about the parallels, those parallels don't bother me necessarily.
Hmm.
They're evident to me. But this movie is sufficiently different than the first movie, and also forwards the story enough in a way that I found acceptable. But I don't want to watch movie after movie where we get ourselves put in a dumb situation with aliens that we then have to fight off, and then
Yes.
like two people survive at the end or whatever. I don't need that story again. I mean,
Right.
if so, in that sense, I don't need more. I would want more. I am open to more stories told in this universe that are interesting,
Hmm.
but that's the challenge, right? What makes them interesting and what they look like? Um, and so there you go. Yeah.
And kind of the final, we're getting down to our final merch questions, but my penultimate question is, would you wear a Wayland Yutani t-shirt ironically?
Maybe.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. I won't get that for your Christmas present.
uh,
Okay. So our merch question. You didn't have any merch, I would
no, no
imagine.
merch, no merch.
I had some, there were
Right.
like micro machines of the vehicles from both movies.
Hmm.
There was a board game that was pretty good from a small publisher. There was a technical manual, which was an interesting thing to have in your bookshelf. But the thing I want to really call out were the Dark Horse comics.
Right.
Those were really good, and they were consistently good for the most part for several years. And they really then suggested that Hollywood was making a big mistake by just not filming these comics
Right.
because
That's
they were
often true,
so
right?
good. They were so good. I mean, there
Yeah.
is an alien Earth motif to the first series that came out. There's the more cocksure colonial marines storyline in the
Hmm.
second series. There's great stuff that they come up with, very imaginative, that it is not at all like any of the Alien movies. It really terrific work. So I just wanted to recommend that. Like if you watch these two movies, probably most people have seen at least one of them by now. But if you watch these two movies and you do want to go someplace else
Right.
that doesn't replicate the same stories
Right.
over and over again, seek out the Dark Horse comics from the 90s and the
Hmm.
2000s. They're really good.
Yeah, I remember them being out. So I would put that on if I'm going to want something, that may be the thing that I want, those comics. Otherwise, nothing else really leaps to mind.
Yeah. Any merch that you wish you had?
I would say the comics.
The comics. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say there is really, I'm saying this, I want it. I don't really want it because then I have to have it somewhere in the house. I have to justify the space occupied, aside from the incredible geekiness of this. But there's a Nerf gun that's based on the pulse rifle from the
Okay.
movies. That
Well, no.
seems like the sort of thing that'd be a lot of fun if I had infinite
Right.
space to put things
Sure.
in,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
but I am mindful about that. So, and I really would only pull it out a couple of times a year tops. But it is a really cool idea.
That's yeah. Well, Nerf guns are fun.
Yeah.
Nerf is fun.
That is an observation that I'm finding it hard to fit into the aliens universe.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Do
Yeah.
people have fun with Nerf
I think not. No, that would be
in
my
this
guess.
universe? All right. Well, that wraps up our episode on aliens. I just want to thank everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Take care.
Time for us to dust off to another drop zone. Thanks for listening. If you like us, please subscribe and leave us some feedback either on the podcast app of your choice or drop us a line at someancientgeeks@gmail.com. You can also find us every day on our Substack, where we post our thoughts beyond the scope of our Ancient Geek podcast episodes. And also you can find us on Reddit, Facebook, and Blue Sky. All content copyright 2025, Tom Grant and Stephen Taylor. Music by Reversed Image, whom you can find on Pixabay. See you next time.
Hey. Oh, hold on 1 second. This installation has a substantial dollar value attached to it.
They can bill me.